Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Witch Cafe, and it's our fourth book club, I believe. And today we are going to be talking about Trinity. There it is.
Mine's Kindle. I can't do it.
See how you are? You need to rig it and get your book picked so you can have the physical book. Today we have a smaller panel because people have things going on. So we have Vinny, Graham, Jay, and Nathan today. So let's get right in. And first of all, thanks to everybody in the chat. And then if you're listening to this later on Anomalous Podcast Network, thank you so much too. Leave any feedback, subscribe, follow, share, all that stuff. So guys, right away, we'll go around and what did you think of the book? Like first impressions, and did it change any way that you viewed anything? And there was one more part to that question, but I forgot it. So go ahead with that. All right, Vinny, you go first.
Thank you. I was waiting for the prompt to see who was going. So I remember last year when we kind of knew that this book was coming out and it was available. We were just talking about this briefly beforehand, that you could pre-order it, I think, on Amazon. But the cover was different. And I think, as Graham said, I think Paola Harris's name was omitted from the cover at that stage. And we didn't know much about it. And so that was kind of exciting. And then it kind of disappeared. And then a few weeks later reappeared and the hype was there. And the day of release, I got the book, read it straight away. So, yeah, I mean, I've this second time round, I kind of skimmed it rather than read it deeply because I'm quite aware of the case and the book. So I've got mixed feelings on the book. The case is intriguing, certainly. It's a great case. There's a lot there that can be pulled apart, and I guess we'll get into that a little bit. But overall, the book, I feel like it was a bit stretched out, and they filled it with things to make it a book. Comparisons to Socorro and other cases and things like that. I would have loved to have just read a good paper on it or something with all the details in it and be done with that. But there you go.
Right. So did it bring anything new to your knowledge of the case or anything like that? Or did it just basically kind of reconfirm what you already were thinking?
I mean, the thing with the case is there are so many points in it that are really kind of anecdotal, and you don't come away from it going, well, this is, there's so many facts and proof. There's proof. You still don't get that, but you get so many pointers that really do look in the direction of maybe a cover up and all these, the military, taking away the object and all things like that. And the fact that these children were not only saw the crash, but they, for 9 days, saw the military cleanup operation and got close to the object and all these different things, which is just incredible to hear, but it's not proof.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. What about you, Graham?
I'll try and separate the book from the case if I can. I'll agree with Vinny what he says about the length of the book. It seems padded. It's 330 odd pages. I've just had a quick look at the page count. It could have been possibly done in about 200. I felt like I was getting a bit bored in some cases. I mean, I hate to say that word, but I felt a bit bored in places. And this is the first time I'd actually read it, and I was fighting the temptation to actually start skipping pages because it wasn't telling me anything really kind of intrinsic to the case and to advance the knowledge and to the way it developed. It was just it seemed to be rehashing the same sort of core points again and again, and I was a bit kind of frustrated in some places. And I actually there is one bit where I got really frustrated, which I'll talk about a bit later on if I can. So much so that I stopped reading it at a certain page, and which is horrible. It's not something I want to do as an author either. I don't want to, to be somebody who sort of casts out over other people's books. But this one, I got to a point where I looked at it and I thought, that can't be right. And I had to read it again. And then I had to read it again to make sure I wasn't interpreting what they'd written, or whoever, is it Paola or is it Jacques, had written this. And I thought, that can't be right. Anyway, we'll talk about that later on. The case itself is like a kind of Roswell in miniature. So it's got all the elements. And in terms of how I feel about it, the jury's out. I'm no further forward from what I've read. Bearing in mind, I haven't actually got through the book yet, so I can't say. I probably shouldn't be here actually talking about it because I haven't read. There's half the book I haven't read. But for what I had read, the first 157 pages, then I am no further forward. So I hope in the remaining 180 pages, it actually does tie it up, and I'll probably end up reading it. After this is over, I will get round to doing it. But it's left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, the bit that I stumbled over. So yeah, we'll come to that later. And that was my little bombshell. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. It's all right. I think if you read at least like a third of it, you're able to. I know. We were like, Jay came in, and then we're just like, okay, let's go. He caught me being confused because I was reading things at once, making up names that didn't exist, and yeah, it's been a rough attention day for me. So Jay, what were your thoughts, or what are your thoughts?
Sure. I was definitely interested in the book and the case. I don't think that it's going to be in my top 3 Jacques Vallée books, However, I did kind of appreciate the chatty tone that he adopts at certain points, like in the first few chapters and things like that. The little details about the owl bar and his love of chili dogs. Like, I actually like that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
too.
I think, and I'm just thinking about this 82-year-old guy waxing about chili dogs and Thai food, and there's something really charming about that. The case itself, I don't see any reason to disbelieve it in some ways. You know what I mean? I agree that it's not a slam dunk. None of them are, kind of, but I think the picture that Remy Baca and Padilla, the picture they paint is rather good. I think that they have a remarkable recall of details, and that makes sense to me in a lot of ways, because who wouldn't remember something like that happening,
Right.
And another thing that I found really charming about the book, just in terms of the way that it's written and the attention to detail, is just being absolutely floored, not necessarily by the crash retrieval, because I read about this kind of stuff all the time, right? But reading about like a 7 and 9-year-old boy that are like driving pickup trucks and taking care of these enormous ranches in New Mexico at such an age, and like taking care of all the cattle during World War II, I was absolutely my jaw was like on the floor half the time that they were talking about what they were actually doing in those days. I thought that was amazing, so admirable, and they sound like wonderful people, So overall, even though it's not Jacques, or I haven't read anything else that Paola's done, but even though it's not the best work, I think it's an interesting case, and I'm glad that I've read it, for sure.
All right, Nathan.
Yeah, this was a book that I wasn't particularly excited to read, I think in large part because when it came out, the reception that it received was fairly lukewarm. And so jumping into it, it didn't take me long to realize why the reception sort of was that way. I've already joked with you guys about the editing of the book. I think it was just kind of weird to see a Jacques Vallée book that just didn't seem to get through a full editing process. But I would say I would agree with Jay. It was kind of cool to see this other side of Jacques. And I come away with that too, just going, here's a guy who's spent so many decades of his life doing this. And obsession is the only word that comes to mind. I just watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind with my wife, who she'd never seen it. And of course, we know he's depicted in that film, and that was in the late 70s. You're just like, gosh, this guy has been after this for forever. So after reading it, kind of trudging through the pages of this story, it started to kind of occur to me. This was like, in some ways, like the labor of his life, like not this book, but this endeavor. And this is kind of like a behind the scenes look at the drudgery. I mean, he talks about this in some I forget what chapter it is, but kind of like the less glamorous aspect of field work. You know, we kind of tend to think it's this amazing thing. You go out with these cool tools and you find these, you know, this evidence, but it's kind of like pretty boring and like, you know, a lot of interviews and poring over interviews over and over and over again. I mean, that's what this book was. It was kind of a drag to get through. And I think that's the process, and to still pursue it in the face of all of that drudgery, to me, says something in and of itself. I thought that it landed on some really strong notes at the end, and kind of how he was trying to, you know, wrap it up, and conclusions he was drawing from it. I also really appreciated kind of how heavily they invested in the context of the atomic age in that area of the United States, and this weird commingling of like brilliant scientists and just, you know, sort of the local people. And how kind of like what a bizarre juxtaposition that was out in this landscape that in and of itself almost feels alien in a way. So it's an interesting book. I don't think I would recommend it per se. Like a summary of it would be great. It almost felt like it was trying to prove itself, like that we could trust the research, because there was just so much research. Like other books, I think, would have summarized that and would have said like, these are the conclusions we got from these interviews. But they were just like, well, here's another interview and another one. We went back a third time. We asked, and it's like, okay, I get it. You know, like I think it's an interesting case. It's a compelling case, but it's weird, just like a lot of the cases we hear about. And that leaves us, just like Jacques, scratching our heads and wondering what it all means.
Yeah, I think that I agree with a lot of that too, because I did like how they tied in the whole the atomic bomb testing and detonations in the region and what people saw around that. And I did like the interviews, but maybe not. We didn't really. I feel like a lot of the interviews kind of said similar things. So I think from Paola's standpoint, she wanted to just give all the information out, as kind of what she was when I talked to her. Is why it was all like that, because she just collects it and gives it, you know, out as it is. So I think that's one of the reasons it had that feeling where, you know, you have somebody writing and you don't know who it is, and then it jumps into this interview. So, but I think it would be good for people not familiar with that specific crash. And I do like, for that reason, I do like the fact that they do put other cases in there. And as far as not knowing a lot, what it didn't really change my view of it too much, but I do have a more complete view of like from the people that experienced it. And I like that. I'm a people person, so I like hearing like, you know, the eyewitness accounts a lot. But yeah, other than that, I would recommend it, but it wouldn't be like the first one I recommend.
Yeah, my thoughts now, just listening to all the different viewpoints on it is, and it's good that Nathan and Jay saw it from that sphere of the person involved, from Jacques, you know, and you know, seeing his name attached to anything, I'm on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But would it have the same impact if it wasn't his name on it and it was just Paola Harris?
Yeah.
To me, no, not at all. I'll be straight up honest. And then when reading it, it certainly didn't read like a Jacques Vallée book at all. And then so I did want to just get to the case. Let's look at the case and put everything else aside. And yes, the points that Jay mentioned about the hot dogs and everything like that. I love that stuff. Yeah. But do you know what? I'd give me a 200-page paper on the case, or 100-page, whatever it would take.
Yeah.
And then maybe like I'd read a follow-up of the investigation separately, because it felt like it didn't flow. It was a mishmash to me. And yeah, I think I struggled with that. And that's what took my mind away from being that invested in the book. I need to finish this. I didn't get that. So there was too many things that pulled me out of it when I just wanted the info and to be compelled by it all.
Yes,
it was neither fish nor fowl in that respect, in so much as half the time you were reading about the backstory and about the people, and the next thing you were reading about the case, and then you were reading about love of chili dogs, and there didn't seem any kind of focus. It was neither one thing nor the other for me, and I really wanted it to be either a book about the case, or maybe just somebody's investigation into looking at something just generally, like some of Jacques Vallée's books have been about a particular subject, but have been sort of his journey through that subject. So, you know, like the ones we've looked at before. So I just think that it could have been so much more. And I get Nathan's comments about the editing. I totally agree. I think it's been a bit of a cut and paste job. I think they've inserted bits at the last minute, and I don't think it doesn't look as though it's been, really tightly sort of edited. I think it could have been a lot better, but I think, as Vinny says, it could have been a lot shorter. I remember seeing the case in Need to Know, Tim Good's book, which I've got a copy of from quite a long time ago. I believe it's summarized in there. Very short.
That's probably all I would need at first. But like, I'm just going to say at this point, for comedic, I'd read a book on hot dogs by Jacques Vallée.
I was just going to say that, yeah, totally.
But you would read a book about hot
travelogue. A food travelogue, like in the style of Anthony Bourdain or something like that.
I mean, he's been everywhere. He could probably recommend some good spots. In all reality, like
different styles, man. We'll have a German brat hot dog, And
but then, would you want a book about also about an alien sort of craft recovery in the middle of that? Sort of getting in the way of the critique about hot dogs. So it's
exactly
it's
good
a bit
point.
kind of. Sorry.
Kind of a crash retrieval sandwich. That would be
hot dog shaped craft. Yeah.
I don't know, guys, like this felt like a tender Jacques to me, Like here's a woman there's a chapter in here where she's like, I feel like I had to tell this story. Like he recounts this conversation with her after they have a dinner or something. And you can feel in the pages there how earnestly she wants to tell this story, how powerful it is to her, and the fact that it got told at all, even in this format that I think agree is a little bit clumsy, to me is a testament to Jacques' friendship with her and commitment to the the exercise of going after this stuff and really trying to figure it out. It really was a more human picture for me of Jacques than anything else. The end of the book is a lot more like Vallee that you're used to. Like the conclusory chapter is like it reads just like anything else you've read from Jacques Vallee. But everything else was just kind of like notes from the road. It's kind of how it felt, which is kind of cool. I mean, to me, it does provide a little bit of an insight, and again, a boring one probably, to what it's like having to do some of this work.
It did have a journal feel to it at times, right? Like as if he was keeping like a travel journal. So if you like reading that, I think that's good. If you're like the person that sneaks and reads people's diaries, maybe But I did like it for that reason. But I do get that. I think if they would have spent maybe a little more time in editing, they could have had like a more organized way of combining the two things. Instead of, like you said, like, here's an interview, here's this, here's an interview, here's this. So, but yeah, that's what I agree with that part too, though, Nathan.
And at the same time, there's also, I agree with everybody here. And at the same time, I could see how they might want to pad the book, because, the people that are going to be bitching and moaning about this case are going to bitch and moan even more if we don't get every damn detail out of every person associated with it. So I could see both sides. As a reader, I would, if this was a 220-page book, that would be fantastic, especially if 100 pages of it was food and like 120 pages of it was, Jacques' famous conclusions. His concluding chapters are always great, and it's often the best part of any of his books. His kind of big ta-da at the end, and he's so infamous and famous for doing this over the years, from Passport to Magonia, which just like, oh, by the way, here is like over 100 years of cases that you probably don't know about, like buried at the in the back half of a book about mythology, essentially, and fairies and whatnot, right? And in Messengers of Deception, he kind of buried in the appendix these really crucial correspondences about secret UN meetings and things like that. And he tends to kind of like blow the doors off towards the end of books. And in this one, I was kind of surprised that he went for the Wilson Davis docs as well. And I thought that was pretty cool. And like I've heard him in interviews and things like that, being like, well, we don't know, it could be this, it could be that. But him putting it in there was pretty cool. I was honestly a little surprised that he did that, which was neat. Yeah.
Very brave. Very brave, I think. I mean, one thing that, thinking about it now, if you look at the documentary Witness to Another World that Jacques was in, this book would have probably been better if they'd have filmed a documentary series over the years of them going back out to the site and doing the interviews and take us on that journey visually. And we can see them stopping off for hot dogs on the way, and we can see them then doing the work when they get to the site. I think visually it would have said a lot more to me. I don't know. I think I'm setting Jacques' standards too high, that this almost feels like a step down for me. I shouldn't really think about it like that, but I can't help it. That's my problem. It's not so much that I'm complaining about the book, is that I'm complaining about the way that I've got these ingrained beliefs about how things should be shown when Jacques Vallée's name's attached to it.
It's not just Jacques' name on the book, is it? It's Paola's as well. So how much is a Jacques Vallée book and how much is a Paola Harris book? It's difficult to actually separate one from the other. So I just question as to how much of it is to do with him, beyond the bits where we talk about his love of food and the traveling. I can't see from the first 150 odd pages that I've read where the distinction is. It's not immediately obvious, and I think if it had been a kind of a Jacques Vallée book, I think a lot of that would have been a lot different. But I can't really tell where.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point.
Match her style. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's almost as if he was trying to match the style, because I have read other books by her, and they're a little more, they flow a little more than this one. So I'm just wondering if it was kind of like trying to combine the two people into one book, which when I talked to her, she said that was like a very cool thing for a female, researcher and a male researcher like him to get together and collaborate the way they did. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like either of them. So I'm wondering if, as far as writing goes, I agree with Vinny. It might have been a good documentary, because then we could see all this stuff, all the interviews. Because I've watched interviews with her, talking to some of the witnesses, not the one that passed away, but the other one, and it was better that way, because you have him telling it, versus reading it a lot throughout this book.
Yeah, I think the book reminds us too. There's a lot in UFO history we don't know. Here's a story that basically was kind of buried and invisible for decades. Like they didn't even, it's just a genealogical get together reignited their interest in telling this. I mean, it was, to me that says a lot about what the stigma behind the subject and what is out there that just isn't in our awareness. And so I think in some ways it's kind of doing justice to the hidden stories that are there, that maybe kind of are boring a little bit, or they're cold cases to a certain degree, but there's something to it, and just piecing them all together. I mean, it's hard for me at least to say that this mountain of information is something we can just ignore. And so I think it's just one more piece in the larger puzzle. I don't think it's I totally get the perspective that we're kind of judge it in the context of Jacques' body of work. So I for some reason I've been able, I think maybe because it is a little bit so different, that I'm able to kind of just put it to the side of those and say, this is a little bit weird and I'm okay with that. It's like Grandpa Jacques, kind of just telling me a different story in his twilight years. And I think it's very sweet. So I don't know, I'm able to sort of separate the two. It doesn't bother me so much that it's a little bit uncharacteristic of his work.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I really enjoy about, I agree. You bring up a great point, Nathan, in terms of, this case was not, and still not settled, but it's easy to forget that even 2 years ago, this was a very marginal footnote you know, in a Timothy Good book, practically. I mean, not a footnote, but, you know, just a little paragraph in a Timothy Good book, and referenced a couple places elsewhere, but largely speaking, people weren't looking at it at all. And now, you know, it really figures in the lore now, you know, and I think that is important. And it is cool to have the kind of prior to Roswell bent to it. And that does figure in. And that way, it does make a lot of sense with Jacques' history in terms of looking at pre-1945 cases, ancient cases, the airship cases, things like that.
Yeah, I suppose one thing, I'm going to flip it around now and talk about some positives, was the details of the research. I mean, there were certain parts of where they talk about the flower patch after the crash, you know, in that area, and then they compared it to old cases where there was fungi growing, and going into those kind of really deep specifics. I love that. Things like that. Really, it wasn't just like, here's the spot, we found the spot where it crashed, but they went into detail. There were flowers there that were growing abnormally. It's a sign of electromagnetic radiation, and it was detailed, data. That's my kind of thing. And so I was really vibing off that. So big positive.
I like that, because I like the detail of the interviews, you know, and I think we all have our place here, and we all like different things about what we read. I think that it was important to have their interviews in writing, just so they're documented that way. And even though people keep saying, oh, like one boy said this, one said the other, it's still important to document what they've said and what they've seen, to me. And again, like Vinny said, with the details, you can tell a lot of work was put into it by both of them. And you can sense the passion of Paola when she's doing the foots on the ground research that she loves to do. She doesn't like to sit back and just not go talk to people. So I really appreciate the amount of time and work from both of them, and traveling and finding the witnesses, and creating, like, and writing down everything as is without adding their own, without rewording or changing anything about it.
Oh, that's a good way to do it. I mean, it's something I strive for as well, is to actually have the story being told in the witness's own words, and it builds a picture up. I think that, and the detail that Vinny described there, actually does come up with that kind of documentary feel that you were both talking about before, about, you know, setting the scene and showing what it was like. I think that is a positive for the book. It does, you know, it might labor the point to a certain extent, but it actually does kind of paint a picture of what the place was like, and the activities of the two kids when they stumbled across this craft, and everything that happened afterwards in terms of the way the landscape developed and changed, and the kind of lengths that the military went, or people afterwards, to sort of hide it and to change it, and the poisonous plants and all this kind of thing. I think there's quite a lot of detail there which you can actually get your teeth into, and it paints a picture. But I think that the things we've talked about before are still something like this elephant in the room, which does make this book a bit of a chore, at least for me anyway, to get through. We haven't talked about it a little bit yet.
Graham is slamming this book, guys. He is just
yeah. I
get a lot of feedback on Graham's reviews, and people freaking love you.
Don't get me wrong here.
You.
There's only one real bit I've got a real beef with. But
let's hear it. Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, okay, well, I'll get it out of the way now, and then we can get to something positive. I don't like slamming a book, but this is the bit.
But however,
if you turn to this is the but. If you turn to page 156 and 157, they basically talk about a book by Renato Vesco and David Hatcher Childress called Man-Made UFOs 1994 to 1944 and 1994, which is that book. And actually, if you read this, you'll find it is an updated version of that, with a few things by David Hatcher Childress, who basically nicked the book off Vesco because he was bankrupt or something, or he didn't have much money left at the end of his life. And Childress basically added a whole load of rubbish on about Nazi UFOs onto this book, which Vesco and in the Trinity book actually mentions Fireball and Kugelblitz. And if anybody knows what those are, they know that I wrote about them at length in the Foo Fighters book, and it's to do with effectively Nazi secret weapons which never existed.
Right.
Exactly. So the fact that that's been quoted, and quoted fairly positively in the Trinity book, means that I'm not sure who's actually quoted it, whether it's Paola or whether it's Jacques, but it's something I wouldn't have expected to see in this. And that's the bit where I went, what? Why
Do you think that there was like pressure put on them or something?
Why have they thrown this into the book? Because it makes very little sense. They could have talked about other things to make the point that they were making, but to use that is a very strange kind of example to use, because it's not just by me. I mean, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here. It's been discredited by other people before me, but I did it at a length.
I was going to say yours was really in depth.
To labor a point, but other people have done it before me, and it's thoroughly discredited. And why those two things should pop up in this book as an example, I've got no idea. And to me, that was just where I hit a brick wall, and I went, I can't read this anymore.
It seemed like back scratching to me, scratching somebody's back a little bit. I mean, and it did seem like it was probably from Paola, I would guess, but that's partially just from, that's a total guess, like I have no idea. However, in terms of like crowds and things like that, it would make a little bit more sense for it to be Paola. Right, and
sorry, I read
that's awesome.
This Wilfred, Wilfred says, I think Graham is my long lost uncle. I love it when he talks like this, and a lot of people do, and we need this. We need honest people, because we all like different things. So, and we all. I think I fell in love with the people in the book, so I think I'm kind of biased because I can just see these little boys doing this, and I want to believe it so bad. So that's my bias, why I fell in love with like the characters of the book or the people that were involved in it. And not only that, I love Paola and I love Jacques. So I need to be more objective when I read stuff, because I didn't even catch what Graham said, and I even read his book, and that was such a mind-blowing thing that he went to the depth of the Nazi secret weapons. And here I am, I read it a second time, and I didn't catch it. I just like read it and was like, yeah. And then I was like, oh my goodness, when you brought it up right now, I'm like, I'm an idiot. Remember when, like Graham tore that apart in his book. So.
And for anybody watching, go and see UAP book Club episode 1, where we cover Graham's book.
Yeah. Can we call you Uncle Graham now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just call the bad boy in the room. I am the bad boy in the room, aren't I? Now I'll put my
You're wild, Graham. You're wild.
I'm calling it right now. Episode 5 should only be trash talking. It should only be like just trash talking the worst books in ufology.
I just love it when Englishmen get fired up.
Oh yeah, he's fuming right now. You can't tell.
He was fuming when we almost picked that other book like a couple times ago. I was just like, I just love when like Graham. I'll say it again. I'm going to say it every episode. I've never heard a classier diss than when Graham disses. Like Graham will tear somebody a new asshole, and you can't even get mad because it's so classy. I just love to hear. I love to hear angry Englishmen, guys. So sorry, I won't press any buttons, but I think I'm gonna recommend like a really crazy book. And just so I can piss Graham off so he can go.
That's a great idea. Oh yeah,
I've watched that.
Maybe
everybody recommend a really weird book.
Are we doing nominations at the end of the show again?
Yes, we are.
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, we can do the David Hatcher Childress Vimana book. I've got that, and it is absolute garbage.
He's dying inside.
No, what's the one with the reptilian world order one? That's what.
Wasn't like David Icke or something.
But that's the thing, though. I don't know the guy. I don't know David Hatcher Childress, but I know the reputation some of his books have, and why that was dragged into this, I have no idea. And it did kind of put a real kind of downer on the book, on Trinity for me. When I saw that, I just thought there's no need for it to me. It could have been just expunged, and it wouldn't have made any difference. It wouldn't have made been any detriment to the book. And I don't want to be this kind of dismissive of the book of Trinity. I'd like to be more positive, but I find myself just sort of stopping there.
Maybe that month or two when we saw it appear and disappear and the cover change, there was something going on behind the scenes, maybe with the publisher, where there was a deadline.
That's what I was thinking.
There was rumor that things had to be added in and that. So maybe it was just like thrown together at the last minute. They had all the data. They had parts written.
Yeah.
That's where we see this disjointed book coming from. Maybe that's what happened. I mean, pure speculation, obviously, but kind of makes sense to me.
As we said before we started here, what was the book about when it was just his name attached to it? where's the extra stuff that she's put in? We can see that from the interviews, at least what I've read.
Right.
The interviews that she did with the witnesses, etc., over the various years. But what kind of book was it going to be before her name was attached to it? What was it going to be released as when it was pulled at the last minute, even though it had been advertised on Amazon, and then it suddenly came out in this form? What would we have got after beforehand? And is this going to be Jacques' last book? Because I'd rather he has a swan song afterwards, which is much better than this. I would hate to think this was his last book.
I mean, I'm not going to be that hard on this one, Graham. I think this was a buddy cop, story. This was a, they tag team to put this together. It's not a Jacques Vallée book. It's a team book. I'm not that critical of it. I don't think it's just one more cool UFO story to me.
Right.
I think, and Jacques clearly wrestles with the validity of this story as well. I wanted to kind of get people's thoughts on that because I certainly went through the motions on the evidence that they present and thinking, okay, maybe it's something, totally terrestrial or just, sort of a secret military thing that just kind of went off the range or whatever. And he doesn't shy away from going there either. I don't think. I think he, pretty clearly says that while this is some pretty compelling, story and evidence and testimony from more than just a couple of folks, he's not sure what it really means, and he definitely takes the classic Vallean perspective that this may not have been a functional craft, and that's not even the point of it. It's not. This is not something that actually was meant to be flown or occupied. It's meant instead to kind of catalyze some kind of change in the culture or zeitgeist of a nation somehow. Anyway, I'm very charitable, though. You guys know that.
It's difficult because of the way they write about this craft coming down in there'd been lightning and in the storms, and it hit this tower, and there are so many things about it pointing in. And when I pictured it, it was like it does make it quite like a big thing. Like this is a UFO crashing. It really pushed me in that direction. Maybe that's my bias in my head, seeing it from that certain perspective, but it kept pulling back to that as well, and I couldn't get away from it. When you look at it evidentially, there are so many things where the kids were talking about, and they even had a name for these small beings and things like that, and that that just points at like another Roswell story where there's small beings that are smaller than humans and things like that. So automatically you're like aliens, and I mean, I hate that word, but that's kind of what it points at. And then you hear about these interviews that are 60 years later. People, they didn't talk about it because they were scared. Yeah, I get that. 60 years is a long time, though, isn't it? I mean, it's difficult for me to, with all these nice points of evidence, something's lost for me in this time and that. So it doesn't make me want to go and research the case any further. Not that I possibly could, but it doesn't make me want to. And I want to be able to have that feeling of, I need to know more. I'm going to go and look for more. Even if it's not there, I'm going to look. But on this one, I'm not.
It's hard with the Roswell. Any cases in New Mexico, any of these crashes, it's hard to go and research it at this point without only having witness accounts. So I think that having it is good, but I'm with you where we can't really get a lot more. It's like it's been wrung out completely by this book. I don't think that there's anything else we can find unless somebody goes back. But somebody did ask me a question on Twitter that I thought was a good question. Do you guys think that somebody asked if any of you thought this was the site that Diana was taken to?
I saw that question. I mean,
yeah. I mean, there's not really a lot of that's all speculation, so obviously I feel like when they say like when she was taken to a crash site, I automatically picture like a desert. Maybe that's just because the whole, but
there's many anecdotal stories out of New Mexico over the years. It could it be another one? Yes. Could it be this one? Yes. If you think about who she was with, Tyler and I forget the other. I know the real names, and I've forgotten
Gary.
Yeah.
Gary.
So,
exactly.
Of course it could have been, I don't really have much else to say on that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm not sure. My gut
I
says
just wanted to get the question out for them
yeah.
because
That was a
Sure,
good question,
sure.
really. I thought
Yeah,
it was a
very
good
good.
question. But I mean, to me, it speaks to like the desert, right? This huge, vast testing area where we're testing all kinds of craft and devices, and I mean, it's got to be littered with just junk. Just you can imagine how many things go wrong in a testing phase, and then through time and weather and everything, they get buried and show up somewhere else. So I guess to me that really points to where Jacques goes with all of this, and that's that you've got all these stories and they have these weird elements to them that just seem so absurd and strange, and it can't be that the simple sort of knee-jerk take on these stories just doesn't fit. And so what is their real purpose? And I think that's what he's wrestling with. That's what we should be wrestling with. There's no easy conclusion there.
Nathan, you always make me think of things, and I feel like sometimes I'm thinking something and you say it, but you say it a lot better than I could say it.
I think one other thing here is that Jacques, people are kind of almost used to Jacques, or maybe Jacques knows of his own reputation that he's the guy that takes left turns. You know what I mean? He's the guy that kind of flips the script and goes back on what he thought 10 years ago and looks at, flips it over, kind of looks at it again, goes the other direction. And it is kind of like, it is, I think that there's something that's to be appreciated there as well. And that like the idea of him just doing a crash retrieval book might have seemed absolutely ludicrous like 20 years ago, and the fact that he did one, maybe it was one of those bucket list things where he's like, yeah, I got to really give a few people a headache with that one before I go out. You know what I mean? Like that's important. But I appreciate it, and I appreciate that he is so dedicated even now. You know what I mean? I met him last month, right, at the conference in Houston, and I just thought I wondered, what he was going to be like. I wondered how committed he was going to be. Sometimes you see people at academic conferences, they just blow in for their talk and they get the first plane out. You know what I mean? And he was there the whole time. You know what I mean? When he wasn't sitting in the front row, like listening to everything, he was off having meetings on the side and that with significant people about significant stuff, that I probably shouldn't. But it's really cool to see that a guy like that is still kind of clocking in, at 9 o'clock in the morning and staying until the last moment. You know what I mean? I think that's pretty beautiful. Yeah, it's incredible. He was having like I heard he was having breakfast meetings like 2 hours before I even got up. Like the guy's got crazy energy and he's super, super dedicated. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I had a really pleasant email back and forth with him at the end of January, and he was just really open, really conversational in his emails as well. It wasn't bullet points or straight to the point. It was flowed like this is like it's like his books, like his early books. These emails where, I mentioned him about Colombia, and he was like, "I'm really excited to see what you came up with in Colombia and all that." And then, but I've been emailing the last few weeks trying to get in here on book club and on my show, and I've just been ghosted. So I'm like, oh man,
he hasn't gone on anybody. What was the last show he was on for somebody?
Good question. It's been a while, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
He was on Engaging the Phenomenon with James when the book came out, but I can't remember him doing anything since then, other than the talk last month.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sort of like really uncharitable about the book, so I will get round to finishing it at some stage because I want to see how it ends, and I'm intrigued by what's been said here about how Jacques puts his traditional, Vallée-esque, spin on the last chapter, because that's what I'll probably get most out of this book from.
Yeah.
So I think, I will persevere. It's too raw for me to actually go and read it at this very, very moment. And bear in mind that I was doing a bit of a Nathan job. I was reading it last minute, so I was actually reading it that bit yesterday with the intention of being able to get through the rest of it last night. And basically taking this morning to read the rest of it because I'm a reasonably fast reader. But it got to the point where I just couldn't go any further. So I'm not the kind of person who likes to stop reading a book, even I might not enjoy it. I'll probably not see it through to its conclusion. So I feel that there's probably still some good stuff in the back half of the book, which I haven't got to yet. But that was just a kind of a bridge too far for me at that particular point. I'll recover from that setback, and I will read the rest of it. Everything you said is valid. So.
Yeah, I just saw over in the chat that Sean's been trolling our chat.
I know. Can we get a mod?
Get him in here. Get him in
What a
here.
bad boy.
I told him to come in. Yeah, he's asking about cows. I almost made a shirt because I have like a design thing, and I was gonna make like a little shirt with your quote, Jay. The cattle mutilations are a really useful thing. With like a little Shetland, like the Highland cows. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. But I didn't get around to it.
I love
something else was in the chat. I suppose I better do this as well. Lara wanted me to say that was shite.
Oh yeah,
that sounds so good. It sounds good. I also like it to be
that's being really polite when from our part of the world, when you're actually talking about shit, when you say it's a shite. It's very polite.
Now I got an image of Graham's face on a t-shirt just saying that was shite.
That's shite.
Oh my god, I would wear it. People be like, "Who's that?" I'm like, Graham.
Yes. And also let the record show that reading the book at the last minute is now known as a Nathan job. So that's
I love it. I love it.
I really Nathan this book.
So that's 3 t-shirts now. Vinny, Pricilla, you've got to have your catchphrases.
No, last time I got to go potty, I think. So
UAP book club merch.
There you go.
Yeah, I was making a thing for the background with Olaf's design, and I just got distracted by kids, and I didn't get to make it. But next time I'll have his thing in the background, his logo in the background, or somewhere on here, which would be really cool. Yeah, my husband was gone for 2 weeks, so I was left alone with a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oof.
And I lived to tell about it.
Wow. And you're smiling.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is an insanity smile. I was coming down here. I was like making I wanted to make my little hillbilly coffee, and my husband's like, "Do you mind making a sandwich while you're up?" I'm like, "I got it." And then the boys were like, "I want a sandwich too."
Oh boy.
And I was like, Jesus. I'm pagan and I'm praying to Jesus. This is how crazy I am right now. But I'm here.
Incredible.
So Sean joining us or what?
I thought he was
feel
there.
like
I
I'm
can join
waiting.
now. And then
He said he hasn't read the book, but Graham hasn't either. That should be fine.
I've read it.
He's joining. He's not
Ooh.
How could you not pull a Nathan job and just get it done? All right.
Come on.
It's not a book club if somebody doesn't have a lot of opinions and hasn't.
I know. I'm like Vinny. Like the last time he was like, I listened to it, but I fell asleep. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm not making the mistake of audio books again. No way, man. No way.
What's up, buddy?
Welcome.
Oh,
I
forgot about the cow thing. I'm glad you're here.
I didn't mean to click enter. I'm not supposed to be here.
No, take your coat off at least.
Both in and out of the box, guys.
Good to see you, Sean.
Yeah, you too. So what's the consensus here on the book?
I'm
everybody
biased,
loves it.
So I can't answer because
Everybody loves. I know Graham didn't finish it. That's a bunch of trite shite.
No. I wouldn't say that about the book at all. That's something that somebody wanted me to say, but I'm certainly not saying that about the book.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't read the book, but I actually read a lot about the case from like previous work done on it before the book by Paola, is her name, right?
From Paola Harris, yeah.
Yeah, Paola Harris. She did like an interview on it. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. Most definitely, especially, it kind of gets around to the same point of, what do these atomic bombs have to do with it? And I found a case, like I posted it in our Twitter thing about a UFO showing up around the Trinity test site in like 57 or something.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Sean, based on what you just said about seeing other work that's been done on it, my view is that anybody that wants to look into it and really want to look into it is go and look at what you mentioned, Sean, rather than reading the book, wanting it all, because what I found was a discombobulated kind of mishmash,
Gotcha.
So
That's the review. Hey, put that on the back of the.
I'm just breaking it down. I'm not going to
mishmash. I'm just kidding.
Here's a question.
It's quite a bit different than his other work, I'd say, probably. Hey.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that it felt kind of like pressured as far as like the editing went, and I think they could have made it work if they had more time. But it sounds like there was some stuff with editing, and I really do love Paola's work and Jacques' work. So I don't think I'm very objective with this one, and I also like hearing witness accounts. So I just think for me it was a good book. But if you just want to know the facts on it, and not have any witness accounts or just the facts, it is kind of long in that sense. But I do have a question, and this is probably a Vinny or Graham question. Does anyone know something about the upcoming book from Gary Hasseltine about Rendlesham Forest?
I do indeed.
Oh yeah.
But
what do you know? But there's a but.
There is. I met up with Gary last year. We spent an afternoon over many coffees talking about everything. A lot of Rendlesham stuff. So I was told
awesome.
quite a lot about the book. I'm kind of obviously sworn to.
Yeah.
I can't talk about anything about it. But that he's writing a book on Rendlesham with stuff that hasn't been really talked about much or at all. And that's all I really know. It will make for an interesting.
That's all you know,
read.
and you can't talk about it.
Moving on.
Yeah.
All
right. Sean goes from trolling the chat to just trolling.
I know, right?
Trolling.
I was worried about other trolls coming in.
I'm sorry,
guys. I had a troll on
that's
Wednesday
great.
night. I couldn't even say the name of this name that they had on their profile pic. Their YouTube account was like a horrible name that I can't even repeat. And I'm not like, I don't mind saying things, but what their name was horrible. So thank goodness Benji was in there, because I literally saw it and I was like, it takes a lot to make me gasp. But when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? Because I only have like Benji as a moderator. He's like my only moderator. So somebody DM me if you want to moderate the book clubs, because
I think
I'm afraid.
I am a moderator, but obviously I can't.
Yeah.
Much live.
I'm trying to. I know everybody said yes, but I'm trying to find somebody that kind of is like regular in the chat. That way.
Lara's here. Lara's a good moderator.
Yeah. I should ask her.
Christian's here. Joss is here.
Yeah, they're always here. So I'll have to DM them.
Linda Thompson will be
somebody needs to protect us against John when he comes in the chat.
Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
I just wanted to know if Jacques had cold, clammy handshake. That's all.
Oh yeah, you did put that.
No, he was really, really warm. Like just a warm guy. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought he would be. I don't know what I thought. Oh my good God. You can't. That's not. Okay, man. I love you too, buddy. I love you too. Just trying to derail you.
I can feel it.
I'm sorry.
Next
Okay,
level
all right,
trolling.
I'm
You're
done.
just trying to derail.
That's a
I'm trying to
screensaver.
make a point, and you're gonna glamour shot me. What the hell, man?
I'm
I
just.
thought we were
kidding.
friends.
I
Hey,
just
listen.
loved you, man.
In Sean's
Anyway.
defense, Jay, that is a great photo because I used that on
Yes.
the thumbnail for our chat
It is a good
tomorrow.
one.
So.
Oh, I appreciate it. All right, I'll use it more often.
You need one with all your plants in the
seasonal thing.
background.
I'm distracted.
true.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but he's a sweet guy. You're just jealous. He was great. Jacques Vallee is wonderful.
I'm definitely
I
jealous.
highly encourage. He's so physically imposing. Like he is so tall. You have no. I mean, it's crazy. You can tell how tall he is. But I'm 6'2.5", and he made me feel like a very.
I never want to
small
meet you. You
person.
might step on me.
Wow.
No.
6'2.5".
Tall people scare me because I'm like 5'0". So I see a tall person, I'm like I'm gonna end up on the bottom of their shoe. Basically, is what I feel like. Like they're just gonna.
Did you guys all listen to his talk by chance?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Archives
Yeah.
of the Impossible.
Yes.
I've listened to all of them, man. They're incredible.
Yeah,
that was
I missed
pretty good.
it when they came out, but now that they're all on, it's actually in the link on from this morning. I added it to the description link, and I'm going to add it to my link tree, the channel, because there's a lot of good talks on there. So if anybody missed it, they can go back and watch, because I got a couple of it, but I was with the kids, so I couldn't watch the whole thing. But so I'm glad they're all up. All the invisible. Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, I was reading this question. I need to stop doing that. All the archives of the impossible videos
Yeah.
are up.
His
Just
talk
wanna
is
ask.
great, and that is a good question down at the bottom. I will say he doesn't. I don't know that he has a secret handshake, but he does. For his bag that he carries around his papers in, it's like a swag bag from Bigelow Aerospace. It looks like the
Nice.
schlubby old swag bag from Bigelow Aerospace. I think that's about as close to a
It's
secret
practical.
handshake as you can get in a lot of ways. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, somebody
maybe you
asked,
get
if you're listening to audio, somebody asked if Jacques had a secret handshake to recognize that you're part of the Invisible College.
Yeah.
Maybe you get the double cheek kiss for the French way. Like,
Oh,
There you go. That's right.
phenomena. I wonder. Like I like his talks. They're always so deep, but it's frustrating though at the same time because I always leave his talks like, man, this is way more complicated. Than,
Yeah, it's frustrating
you know.
sometimes. 'Cause
kind of gives you like, am I ever gonna figure anything out? You know.
I just keep thinking if he hasn't figured it out, you know, he's
Yeah.
done so much work and put so much time into it. Him and so many other researchers, even Paola, they put so much into it, and they're still not completely sure. So it's just insane, and that's why the Messenger's Deception book really kind of messed with my mind because I was like, we don't know crap because maybe they don't want us to know crap. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or just dumb monkeys.
So many different things to think about. And then he was talking about any case after like 75 or even 85 is, trying to find a real case after that time, because of technology and all that, not because of hoaxes, but because of the phenomenon or whatever, gives an ample excuse to, whatever black tech they're testing or whatever, even mention programs that could be like MK Ultra, stuff like that, crazy stuff. Makes you wonder, like, so how can we do this then?
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah.
There was a part I wanted. So go ahead.
Oh no.
Oh,
Yeah,
what did you guys think about the part of the book where there was some sort of weird meddling with Sabrina's in-person meeting with Paola? Did you guys remember that? I know, spoiler alert, Graham, but it's I thought that was kind of strange, don't you
Yeah.
think? That I mean, if this case has no merit or there's nothing to it, like why does it seem like a private conversation, telephone conversation was seemingly eavesdropped?
That was a strange thing. And it makes your mind go to places, where you wonder if anybody studying this as openly as she is or as Jacques is do they even have any privacy at this point? I know people are like, yeah, but that's illegal. Okay. Yeah, it's illegal, guys. They're not going to do it. Like,
Right.
we're not falling for that. But at the same time, you're afraid to get involved in another conspiracy situation. But that is strange that, private conversations become known like that. Like, there's only one way that happens,
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I mean, at a certain level, I feel like you have to, even, who knows, but even people on our level, I've seen getting kind of like tracked and monitored and things like that, and people have talked about that. You know what I mean? I remember having conversations with Richard Dolan about the level of fuckery that's happened with him in terms of finding shit in his house. You know what I mean? Like that certainly seemed like monitoring. Well, more specifically out back of his house, but like it's crazy. You know what I mean? It's only getting easier to do things like that, right? I mean, we look at it. We got everybody carries a surveillance device in their pockets. It's just the plain old truth of it, and we all just kind of, well, whatever goes to the Utah data center. All right, but that's my old man rant for the day. Everything's tracked. We're fucked. We're
Get off my lawn.
Well, I think
Get off my lawn.
It's like in doing my own research, and you guys could probably, relate to this. It's that a lot of this stuff also, runs so parallel to, black technology or secret technology too, So if I'm like going to study or try to find like some sort of anti-gravity like propulsion or whatever, it's going to lead me in the same areas as like, the A11 would or A12 would or whatever, in researching that stuff. And so, there's that has to do with it as well. It's like, so you're researching a phenomenon, but maybe not necessarily trying to. You're also like stumbling maybe into areas you shouldn't be stumbling into.
Right. But
It's
then you
true.
wonder, like, how is that even there if it's really that big of a secret? So you're also wondering when you're researching and you come across something like that you feel like you shouldn't even be seeing, then what are you how did you get to it? I'm not doubting your computer skills, but is it put there to kind of like keep us busy in a way? I don't want to be like mislead us because it sounds super like scary and
It's that
conspiracy.
same old cliche. It's the in plain sight that we hear about.
That's true though.
It is.
That
We've
is
heard it from many angles over the years, from different people, different researchers, and it's the it really is a cliche, but it's got to hold some weight somewhere, sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like on the CIA website, there's so many, I think, UFO documents that you can find there in the FOIA room that a lot of people don't even necessarily know exist,
Right.
because I don't think, that they do release a lot of documents. They don't necessarily make it easy to find those sometimes. Like,
Right.
for instance, in the CIA FOIA reading room, like if you search, Graham would know this, if you search attic, ATIC, space saucer versus blue book space saucer, you're going to get a lot more stuff.
It's
And
interesting.
nobody talks about attic, they talk about blue book.
You do.
Even if you look,
You
even
talk
if you
about all the
look-
things.
even if you look
Yeah.
through the Blue Book documents, and people have gone through them, throughout the last sort of 30, 40 years after, when the documents started coming out, but people haven't really gone into them in a huge amount of depth, I think, beyond the kind of overall, yes, they were trying to push this kind of narrative, but there's a lot of information still contained in those documents that hasn't really seen the light of day too much in terms of print, or being discussed too deeply. There's certain cases which have, obviously, because they're quite famous and they've been looked at in a huge amount of detail, but there's a lot of other cases which just gone by the wayside. So there's a lot of information out there that still has to be, those stories still have to be told, and it's just a question of somebody coming along and doing it.
Yeah, I concur. There's over 10,000 folders in the archives of Blue Book files. That would take me a few years to get through at least, So for sure. Go ahead. Sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Stop fighting, Mom and Dad. Please don't fight in front of me.
Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ!
Every time you need to give it to me so I can put it in the back, like
Yeah.
just be
Yeah.
like Jay,
Yeah.
Jay.
That's how I know when I get a demerit. My glamour shot goes up.
Oh.
I get it. No, but like, there's no, but it's interesting, and there's we're talking about people that have had Jacques Vallee. To be perfectly frank about things, this guy has had a security clearances since like long before we were born. You know what I mean? Like he was mapping Mars in 1964. You know what I mean? So this when you see books like this, it's not just like the docs that you're talking about in the reading room and things like that. We were talking to Colum and George Knapp earlier this week, and Sean, and I was thinking about this afterwards. Colum Kelleher is essentially like the next generation's Hal Puthoff in many, many, many ways, right? And the fact that the Skinwalker books themselves are kind of like they're kind of like the pattern of Mind Reach, Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ's old book about the SRI Stargate program, right? Because it's about a confidential program, and then they're allowed to say this much, and they make it as entertaining as possible, and then it's kind of like PR in a lot of ways. And it's like highly readable, interesting, fascinating PR. But you're getting people that are in confidential programs, and they're talking about like this little bit that they can actually say, right?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And in some ways, that I think is interesting about this book in and of itself, is that okay, Jacques Vallée knows more than he says, like, oh, I don't know, but like he knows some shit, right? He knows some stuff. And like if he's putting his name on a book on the Trinity case, I'm thinking like, that guy also, he was running the secret data warehouse for NIDS, 25 years ago. He's been working on that confidential case warehouse for over 40 years. I have to kind of feel like there's something to it then. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that's not going to be enough for some people, but who are those some people? Did they map Mars?
Right.
You know what I mean?
200,000 cases he said he has in there. Like, that's a nice sample size right there.
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, it begs the question, like, who's the audience of this book? Who's the audience of Jacques Vallée's work right now? And I think, it's easy for us to say, oh, just the UFO enthusiast. But we all know that there's a renewed interest in many private circles in this topic. And who are they going to read? They're going to read the guy that's been studying it for decades. And so, I do sort of wonder, I'm not trying to sound too conspiratorial, but there is this book as a tool, Jay, as you sort of mean here, that what new doors may it open for those who read it that may have other stories that they felt, oh, maybe this really wasn't worth mentioning, but there may be a connection that lights up in their minds or their history, and new sort of things emerge. And that's the thing about this topic, I think, generally, that it's very, it has kind of like a fractal nature. Like it sort of starts and then it just kind of keeps going, and its tendrils eventually kind of get everywhere and create sort of new interest and new story. And some of that is, harmful to the topic, right? We all know that there are sort of fantasies that kind of come out from the what ifs of this topic. But then there are also the facts. There are some things that are factual that, I think researchers and people who just had the experience may have brushed under the rug or pushed aside. But because this is entering the mainstream, they're more emboldened to come forward and kind of help us put some of these pieces together.
Who's going to be the next Jacques Vallée in terms of authors? Who's going to be the person who comes up with the thought-provoking books over a very long period of time and consistently good? This one maybe aside. Who is going to be the person who comes up with it? Really, really sort of just so deep the books are, and you have to read them again and again and again to get the little nuances out of them. Who's going to take up that kind of cudgel? Who's going to run with that torch? Who's going to write those books in the future?
I think looking at the way that the subject's grown in the past few years, since 2017, let's say, that we've now got a conglomerate. We've got a selection of people that are all writing books, and that their work together will push the subject forward, like Vallée's books did in the past. We don't have to rely on one person anymore. We've got groups. We've got people that are now pinpointing certain aspects of the phenomena and doing their own work. And when you put all those pieces of work together, you get a bit of a bigger picture that kind of, it correlates, it works together, and it's more of a group thing. It's more working together. That's how I see it. I don't think we'll ever see it like it was in the old school.
But that's assuming that people have got the time and the inclination to read multiple books over multiple sort of avenues and issues, whereas people who are coming into the topic or looking out from outside in, they might not have the time or the inclination to do that, and they're looking for one particular person who they can read through a body of work and go, oh yeah, okay, I get that. Whereas that's what you could do with Jacques Vallée over decades. You could read his works and you could get a lot from that. It might not get you any further forward,
Right.
But you still can.
But then
the good thing about books.
It's food for thought, isn't it? Whereas if you have that kind of body of work, as you say, Vinny, you've got to read over maybe half a dozen or maybe more authors over multiple books to get that same kind of collection, that same work.
How about back in the day when Vallée's books were out, people were reading them, there wasn't any other mediums to get information from. Look at where we are now with other mediums, online, podcasts, chats like this, and things like that. That's maybe where people will go. Then books will become secondary or third to that.
Well, maybe it's your job to read the books and tell people about it. Not you personally, but that sounded really Vinny. That sounds like a you problem. Is basically what that sounded like. That's not what I meant. I meant like people on panels like this. Like, it's our job to read the books and tell people what they're about. And if somebody has a question, like, where do I start? then you guys can point them, or we can point them in the right direction as to where to start. But there's not going to be another Jacques Vallée, because he was there. He's been here for so long. There's no way anybody can be like that again, because he's behind the scenes on stuff. Just the mapping of Mars, like you said, like these are things that he's done that will not be done again. Maybe like boots on ground mapping Mars. Maybe some guy like that will come along eventually. But I think we're still going to be Matt Damon for sure.
But I think what we need, though, like, you know, to me, Jacques' work is his mission is basically concluding, you know, and the beauty of what has come out of that, and I don't know that he even thinks of it this way, is we have new interdisciplinary groups that are forming to tackle this. There is no longer a single person having to carry the torch. We have folks that are really trying to band together across disciplines and study this in a very serious way. The SCU is a great example of that. The Rice University thing, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good stuff that will come out of that effort. You know, it seems to me like it has to leave the siloing. Like the siloing of the topic, the interest has to stop. We have to get interdisciplinary. We have to start sharing things across all these kinds of different experiences in order for us to really understand what's going on. I don't want it to go back to being, you know, a singular point person to kind of be the guy or the gal.
Yes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And to, you know, just to quick speak on what Graham was saying, and Vinny, like Jacques' books aren't going anywhere. They'll still be there. So no one when new people come into the field, they'll still have those books to read, you know, and they'll only be void, I guess, if we get that much farther past where he did. And another thing is, you know, the thing about Jacques and why he was so impactful when he first got on the scene, I'm assuming, is because he touched on theories and speculation nobody else did. You know, he was talking about interdimensional and it not being aliens or extraterrestrial, and there being some sort of control system, and being able to take on the cultish aspects of ufology and all that. And you know, and I see this kind of issue in music too, or even television or movies. It's like, how far can you go, or how many songs can be made until, you know, it's like we've tried everything.
Yes.
You know, how many other theories can you come up with that would be, you know, at least valid to where you would break out on the scene like that, like he did then, even though you know, from what I know, people didn't really like him so much at the time, but yeah, I could be wrong. I wasn't around then.
Certain things are timeless. Certain things are timeless in this field. Jacques' work will always be timeless. Even if we get disclosure, people will want to know what came before it. Looking back, you know, the generations that are going to follow us, you know, look at, I'm going to blow Graham's trumpet here a little bit. Is that a pretty bad term? But look at the Foo Fighters, you know, very rarely seen many people write about it in the past. The books that came before Graham's touched upon it. Graham elevated it to the next level. We're not going to see anything again on that level. What else is there? There isn't.
He's covered everything.
Exactly. And there are, you know, we'll find this eventually as we go through the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, depending how the subject evolves. You know, we'll see that in certain aspects where it just gets ticked off and like, that's done. It really is. World War II is done for now. The Foo Fighters, you know, where else are we going to get any more information on that? You know, so
Time machine.
Well done, Sean.
You're right, but you know.
Do you guys want to do, since we're over the hour, I don't mind staying longer, but do we want to, I'm going to get your book suggestions.
Oh yeah.
And we'll just like go around.
Oh yeah. Can I go last?
Oh yeah.
Please.
Okay, we'll start
with
Graham.
I'm going to be the same as last month. I'm going to go for that again.
Ooh.
Timothy Good, Above Top Secret.
It's not the one that it's not the one that the Trinity case was mentioned in, because that was Need to Know, but that was his first one. And that was the one that sort of got a huge reaction in Britain when it came out.
And he's a great writer. He's a good storyteller. But the cases really come alive in your head. He's got powerful visuals. I like his writing a lot.
Yeah, that is on my list too. So, Nathan.
I'm going to go with one I mentioned a couple shows ago, Identified Flying Objects by Dr. Michael Masters.
Yeah.
Oh, good choice. Not read it. Good choice.
That's a really good one, and we might be able to
I
get him
have
on the
it.
show. Yeah,
We could,
yeah.
I mean, I speak to Michael fairly regularly.
He's a really
guy.
nice guy. I had lunch
Very
with him.
nice guy.
He's great. Yeah.
Jay.
Who's up next? Okay.
I feel like a teacher. I'm like, Jay.
As I'm like stepping on everybody, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
See how you are.
I put a lot of thought into this one, and it's partially because Vinny has a really cool new show coming up that he shot. Phenomenology coming out May 1st. Man. Is that right?
That's right.
You and Dan and the whole team. And so I was thinking about like what would be great that way. And this might be a little bit controversial, but I know that you like accounts, Pricilla. I would suggest Sky People by Dr. R.D. Six Killer Clark. Untold stories of alien encounters in Mesoamerica, right?
Cool.
So absolutely fascinating book. Really great accounts, tons of accounts. She actually did the field work. It's a breeze to read. It's great.
Uh-oh, he keeps freezing.
Nice. In these poses.
I know. He's pretending. He's just trying to look cute.
You're talking to me?
No, Jay's like frozen in a pose. He would freeze handsome. I feel like when I freeze, it's like...
It's blue steel.
Well, it was going to be Sean's turn, but now he's gone.
He's gone to get the book. He's gone to get the...
Oh,
Listen,
okay.
I'll do mine. I'll do mine. It's cool. I've actually got two. I'm going to go with this one, which is... The UFO Files by Dr. David Clark. It's a very...
There we go.
It's a good book. It's a good book. Oh, nice. You got that. Graham's got the original.
Nice.
I've got the second revised edition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great book.
All right.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
He stopped posing for us. We got
Get him out of here.
I know. Who freezes like that anyways? He's just like...
Right.
The Secrets.
Wow.
Yes, I've heard of Alvin Moore.
UFO Diary.
I'm not going to pick that one.
Oh, okay.
Graham will
That
throw
one was
up
for Graham,
mid-book.
right? This homework.
Yeah, but then we might,
I
listen,
would.
pick that one because then if we have to read it, Graham might go off and do this.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be like an hour of Graham just.
I'll just go off.
Get her wish.
Can I go off now?
Street for all conspiracy prone UFO
I'll just go off
advocates.
now.
Go on.
Get it out of your system.
No, I think.
No,
How about in plain sight?
Yeah, I mean, we've yet to discuss
Good
it.
one.
It's
Yeah,
obvious.
and I read it and
Amazing.
listened to it, but I would like to read it again.
We should bring Ross on so Graham can yell at him.
No, I wouldn't yell at him.
You couldn't.
it's-
You can't yell at Ross.
No, it's not even that.
I don't want to hear those two
It's
yelling
not-
at
it's not
each
even that.
other.
It's a
I would be
great- it's a great
afraid.
book.
It is
It
very
is
good.
Really,
a
really good
fantastic
book. So I wouldn't dare.
And I'm sure Ross would be very, very down to join. It just might be timing. That's the thing, because I know, when I've spoken to him, it's been weird times, so I'm sure he'd be down.
We can work it out. If you can get him on, that'd be good. So
Or skinwalkers at the Pentagon.
Well, listen, my second book was actually Hunt for the Skinwalker because that's a crazy good book.
yeah, I haven't read it. I've heard it's good.
It's really, really
Well,
good.
I was gonna go with Nathan's book, but to mix it up, I'll do that one.
Come on, Priscilla, what you got?
I'm gonna do that one because it's on
Yeah?
my list, and I was undecided,
Okay.
so I was gonna go with
Good shout.
Nathan's book
Good
because that was
shout.
like. So then we have I'll have a different one.
So wait,
Jason,
what's the
Internet
process right
Pros.
now? Do you draw now, or do you do Twitter polls and stuff?
What's worked for you guys in the past? We switched it up last time.
Polls,
I
no, drawing now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Drawing now, okay.
drawing lots is much easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Then we can get
And
stuck
then
in.
it's totally random then.
Sean, not buying it, mate.
Yeah, I can see I can see your finger moving, Sean.
Good try though.
oh, he's
Good
back.
try.
You froze like in in a pose. You were like posing, and then you froze.
Oh wow, like the
We're like-
man,
Yeah.
Classic.
like
Screenshotted
the
everywhere.
high school yearbook kind of pose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
I'll take
probably
it.
on about 2 or 3 Twitter accounts right now.
Oh shoot! Oh my gosh! If it's not, Sean will do it soon. He's been busting my balls all day. Yep.
Oh yeah.
You were doing the post for the T-shirt about the cattle mutilations on All That Bad.
He's gonna be
Oh,
leaning on a
Jesus.
cow like this, like.
Yep, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Locked in.
All right, and hopefully I can read my own handwriting.
We'll do a drum roll.
Well, I'm not ready yet. I gotta rip 2 more.
I'm just happy we don't have another Jacques Vallée. As much as I love them, it's kind of
We have to be a moratorium on Vallee for a
you
little
know
while.
we've
Yeah.
got to
We were almost the Ballet book club for a
spread
second.
it out a bit.
It's so quiet.
Well, we're nervous. We don't know.
Yeah,
You know,
like-
this is gonna affect the next
anticipation
4
is
weeks of our
killing me.
life.
Mhm.
Right. Oh, sorry, I lost one for a second. Don't know why I made that sound. I did though. There it is. UAP hat.
Nice.
And tell me when, guys.
Keep going.
Tell me when.
Keep going.
When?
Oh, wait, I
Good
thought I
thing.
grabbed 2 for a second. I got scared.
Oh, now
Okay.
Sean's got like an Inception situation going on.
I know.
Oh,
I'm just Sean, but
Hey, dude.
actually, we got above top secret.
I feel
Hey,
violated.
nice.
Whoa. Okay.
Wait, what do we get?
right.
Timothy Good.
Oh,
Nice.
I just noticed your
All right.
background. Yeah, we got the Timothy.
All right.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I
Okay,
thought
I'm down.
I was wondering if Sean was going to show up just to rig it again or not. So
I was distracted. I was getting my face licked.
I missed it. All right. So, does
right.
anybody- so we picked Above Top Secret by Tim Good for.
Yeah.
I'm
Next
like a kid
month.
with the green screen. I can't.
I like it, dude. I like it, man.
I'm just in the office.
I'm gonna be prepared next time. Don't you worry.
I think it's going to be great.
Look out.
I'm already
You
looking
weren't-
forward to it.
Oh no! Leave me out of the shenanigans, guys. I'm just here. So. Yeah. So does anybody have anything to any like closing thoughts or anything else you want to talk about before we
I'm gonna give a shout out to these 2 gentlemen down here, Jay and Sean. They're gonna be joining me tomorrow night, same time,
Yay.
12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. British summertime. Go over to my channel, check it out. We're gonna have a great conversation. I'm looking forward to speaking to these guys.
Very
So
cool.
looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
But then on Tuesday, I've got another show with all the members of the Anomalous Podcast Network, including you, Pricilla,
Yeah.
Graham. I think Dave's joining. Andy can't join, but Dan's going to join. So lots coming up on my channel in the next few days before I head off to Scotland. So
Nice.
That is so cool.
That's awesome.
All right. Anybody else have anything coming up? That's going to be my next thing coming up. So, the Anomalous podcast panel.
Yeah,
video
so
panel.
I'm on the same network with Dave Partridge. So we run the Unidentified Aerial podcast. So we look at old cases. And so we've already done a few episodes. So we've looked at the likes of Kenneth Arnold. We've looked at the Foo Fighters. We've looked at a few other things. And that's going. So anybody wants to have
Great.
listen to another new podcast to add to their collection, then Unidentified Aerial podcast. Give that a listen as well, please.
I think I have it in the description too, because I feel like everybody here is linked to it in one way or another. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jay and Sean for doing an amazing job on everything they've been doing. Like, you guys are great. I never catch the lives because I'm usually cooking dinner, but it sounds so pathetic. But yeah, just doing wife and mom things. But I usually listen to them while I'm folding laundry. So that made it just more well-rounded that all I do is cook and fold laundry and read about UFOs. So
Well, I
it's
just want to
a-
say that you're a gracious host. I really enjoy being part of this group, and I look forward to it every month. And
me too,
also, if
guys.
folks haven't checked it out, you guys got to check out the interview she did with Jeffrey Cripple.
oh hell
earlier
yeah.
today.
Yeah.
gosh,
It was
I was
amazing.
like beaming after that. I've loved his work for so long and for a long time. And just the fact that he messaged me back, I was like, I did not expect you to message me back at all. And because I don't even have like 500 followers, I'm thinking when I email these big people, they're just going to be like, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, or like delete, or, but you got to try. So yeah, that was amazing. He's so cool to talk about. We've even talked about having another discussion. So like a part 2 after I move in August. So keep an eye out for that. And then, yeah, we can talk about, I'll message everybody about when we want to do the next book club. If we want to keep it April or whatever. But yeah, and everybody's doing such a great job on the podcast too for Anomalous Podcast Network. You're all doing great, and it's an honor to be friends with all you guys and be on a panel with all you guys and be on a podcasting network with you too. So I just want to give everybody some love in the panel.
Thanks.
Yeah, total mutual appreciation society. I listen to everybody in this room, and I love listening to all of you. Everybody does a great job in this.
It's super weird though for me.
Yeah.
To like hear myself pop up on my Spotify randomly. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. Turn it like, when you hear yourself.
Because you deserve it, Pricilla. It's because you deserve it.
My son's like,
great
what's that?
work.
Which podcast? I'm like, yep.
Love it. No, I think all you guys are great, and I think it goes to show that there's always, even if it's online and virtual, there is some sort of magnetic force that kind of pulls the right pieces inwards towards each other. I can learn something from each and every one of you. I appreciate being around each and every one of you. You make me better every time I get to speak with you or listen to something that you do. And Pricilla, I'm super appreciative that you take the time and put this together. And deal with me being an asswipe and coming on last minute and just joking around.
I'm a boy mom, so it's the same old same.
You're our asswipe, Sean.
Mr. White.
But you know what? You're our asswipe.
Yeah, that's right.
I love you, buddy.
I love you guys too.
Love you being an asswipe. So
one day we'll share a real spaceship together.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
That would be
Patrol
great.
with a heart of gold.
Aw. There's Sean's shirt. You're going to have a little saying shirt, I think, at one point. So I'm going to say thank you to people that joined in the chat later. So we have JT, Joss, Carolina, Laura, Christian, Yanni, Elena's in here, Jeff. I saw Nathaniel Gillis coming in. That's awesome. Smoke Out, Random Content, Angel Wings, and I think I didn't. Oh, Water Lily. We don't have too many people. Angel Wings, I said already. Naive Essence says she's in here too today. Study of UAP. I saw DJ in here earlier. I know it's a long list, and if I missed you, I'm sorry. I'm scrolling, but thank you for your support live. It means a lot to me. Please share, follow everybody on the panel, share their work, subscribe. Support in any way that you can, whether it be a review. If you're listening on Anomalous Podcast Network, thank you for sitting through this. We have a lot of fun doing it. If you have book suggestions, please go ahead and send them to me, and I can take them into consideration. We were taking a lot of book requests on the live, but one time it just got to like 80 requests, and then it was kind of like, oh, how are we going to do this from now? Sean, what you have coming up next is going to be on Vinny's show, right?
Yeah, that's all I got coming up next. The rest of it, I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants, so to speak. I research. I'll do a show if I find something cool. Or if some news comes along. Jay and I do stuff on Wednesdays. We don't have anything planned right now, but you never know. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
And what about you, Nathan?
So Liminal Frames will be out tonight. That's the project I have with X Academia. It comes out every other week. And then on Cab, we've got, take a quick look at the calendar here. John Metrowski, looks like that's going to be this week. Interested to chat with him. And then, just a bunch of different things in April. We got an exciting guest in May, a couple of really neat guests in May. Looking forward to. So, never a dull moment.
Very cool.
Well, follow everybody here, please, because they're all so awesome. Everybody's links are in the description, like I said already. And I think I'm going to end now. So goodbye, everybody. If you hang out afterwards, I can tell you goodbye behind the scenes. And again, thank you. I appreciate everybody that's listening to this live, later, in the past, in the future. on another dimension. Who knows? Have a good night.
Yeah. Peace.
Have a good night, everybody.